activity, so I have a happy routine.
That's great. I think you stole my answer. So again, yes, most days I do wake up happy, but then it depends what do I have on my plate for the day when I do organize my calendar and then see all the chores I have to do, all the people I have to meet. And then, so it really depends on the day-to-day situations. But for the most part, there's a sense of wellness, a sense of purpose that my life is fulfilling. So knowing that overall life is well, that sense of that sort of persists, and that gives me a sense of wellness and happiness every day. Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah. So what parameters do you think are important or for happiness, or like what parameters does happiness depend upon for three of you?
So I personally believe that I can divide it into three components. Like it could be physical and mental well-being. Then it could be satisfaction. And then if a person is able to if a person is aware of his or her emotions and actions. So I think these three things.
Oh, this seems like Maslow's hierarchy of friends who are a bit familiar to psychology. It sounds like, yeah, you're talking about those needs, right? What about you, Doctor and Jasika?
I think for me, like going back to the basic points, like if I am making sure, as a doctor, I do see like feeling fit physically, I feel plays a big role in my overall sense of wellness and like mental well-being. So I do have to make sure I sleep, at least get about 6 to 8 hours a night. I do work out at least 30 to 40 minutes every day, at least 5 times a week. And then I eat the right amount of foods, and I refrain from like my desire to indulge into, a lot of pleasureful foods, which may kind of steer the balance every now and then. So basically, sleep, exercise, and diet. I think those things will be the big three for me. And of course, what Ananya pointed out, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Like, mental and physical health, social support from friends, family, your better half. That really has an impact on your health and your mental health. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree with you three. So what are the three most important things for you three to be happy? Like, what do you think are the three key things that make you happy or that are important to ensure you are happy?
Being emotionally, physically, and financially sound, I think these are the three most important things for me personally.
Yeah, I think when I have positive emotions and I am able to carry out my daily routine and I'm being productive and again, I'll say when I'm aware about myself. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And, as a doctor, I mean, I do have days when, things do feel slightly overwhelming. And over time, things tend to pile up also. So another thing that kind of brings or fortifies a sense of wellness is sort of remembering taking one day at a time, and then taking adequate pauses also within a day, which kind of give me time to kind of pause and reflect and see what really matters, and kind of taking a breather in between. I feel those are the big things that kind of reinstill that sense that yes, we're going in a good direction, you know, on top of all the other things we all talked about. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. So finally, in the rapid fire round, I want to know about the barriers to happiness. What do you think can obstruct happiness in today's life, especially, or if you personally know of some barriers that often you face in your life?
So if I go first, so I personally think that unawareness and ignorance are the biggest barrier, in the sense that so we all are here for a motive to exchange our energies and learn together about happiness and share maybe our stories. So people who remain and who are happy remaining unaware about all these things, and they're ignoring maybe that, okay, happiness is about maybe, say, only materialistic things, or so I believe that when you are aware about happiness, you're working in that direction. I think you are somewhat getting over the hurdles. And I think the next thing would be aversions and cravings. Aversions, I mean here that when I am getting away from, and I'm having fear from sadness. What if I get sad? What if I face a challenge in my life? So I'm aversing that particular situation, or maybe craving. I'm all the time dying for happiness. So I'm not enjoying the present moment. Of course, there are some situations that can't be enjoyed, but can be accepted at least. So I think when we are craving for something, or we are having aversion, that is the biggest barrier to happiness. Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. So aversions, if I am right, Ananya, please correct me if I'm wrong. So aversions are somewhere also related to the past, and cravings are also somewhere about the future. And most of the times, these are not really related to the present. So that's an interesting perspective.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jasika?
For me, I think maybe it's our own mind. Like maybe happiness has always been around us, but we haven't realized it. Other things can be, the culture, the expectation and duties from the society or the family, or the interpersonal roles within family, friends. Maybe stress, illness. Maybe there's some type of barriers to our own happiness.
Right. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think you guys hit totally the nail. And I think for me, again, there are days when it gets super busy, and then, things pile up again, how I said it before. So there's a desire to succumb to life's pressure sometimes, that, there's a desire to defer things to tomorrow, or, like procrastination, you can call that. Or, there was a busy day, so let's just eat and go to bed, rather than taking like about 20 minutes out to kind of do a quick workout, or like a call of maybe a friend, or, like sit with your family. So I think, like you said, like barriers are kind of self-made, like they're kind of um, perceived as, if I don't do that, that will cause that. If I don't do this, this will impair my happiness. So I try to resist this temptation of, succumbing to what my intuitive thinking is telling me. So I try to resist that, and that generally takes care of it most of the times. But sometimes I do indulge, as and that seems okay too. So I would say just kind of fighting my own battle seems like the biggest barrier sometimes. Yeah.
We totally get that. Yeah. Even we can put ourselves into that place and relate with you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for a wonderful rapid fire round. Now I would like to get more detailed perspective of three of our panelists. So since three of you are also connected to the psychology field, I wanted to start off our first round with getting your professional and psychological perspectives on things. So I would like to start off with you, Jasika. So my question is, how to make happiness a lifestyle, and what things should we avoid, and how can we boost our happy hormones?
Okay. So to make happiness a part of your lifestyle, by bringing yourself in the present and not regretting about the past and over preparing for the future, like give yourself some time, like don't be so harsh on yourself, pause and reflect, be grateful, practice gratitude. Like Dr. Manan said, exercising in the morning, it really helps to boost your happy hormones, and especially making emotional well-being and self-care a priority, because physical health is important, but your emotional well-being, your mental health, like do give it a priority. And the things we should avoid, it's not in our hands, but we can try to control them, because it's a mind, like, what plays the role. Like, try to avoid negative thoughts and expectations from others, overthinking, and social pressure to be a certain way in the society. And stop over planning. Let the life take its own course, like self-esteem, low self-esteem, we should avoid it. It really affects us very badly. And all out of this, like, talking to someone and seeking professional help. And it's okay not to be okay. And about the happy hormones, like, hormones are natural mood boosters for us. Like, go outside to boost your endorphins. Like, it's like in research, exposure to sunlight can increase production of both the serotonin and endorphins. Like, exercising, it really has positive impact on emotional well-being. They really, like, like what we say, runner's high. It's just the link between exercise and the hormones, like it boosts up your happiness. Like, laugh with a friend, like we say, laughter is the best medicine, like socializing with your friends, colleagues, like not all of us, but like, cooking your favorite meal, dancing to your favorite song, singing, and meditation. It really helps to calm you down, and it improves your sleep, and it helps to reduce the stress. Like, you can plan a romantic evening with a better half, like just to make yourself happy, blissful, like some of us have dogs, like dog therapy. Like, it really helps, that affection to boost oxytocin, not just for you, but for the dog too. The cuddles, they're not just for you, but for the dog too, like getting good night's sleep, managing stress. Like, there's so much, like you can do to boost up your happy hormones.
Wow, that's a whole lot of tips that we can take care of. Thank you, Jasika. And a lot of them are so relevant because I could relate it to my own life and lifestyle. I want to ask you a question on that, Jasika. You mentioned about the exposure to sunlight for releasing certain hormones in our body that further lead to happiness. And in fact, in today's era and the lifestyle that we follow, we tend to be indoors, like our offices, our houses, being on laptops, especially during the pandemic. We're so much on screens these days. So in this era, what would you say to the youth especially, and to people who follow a very sedentary and indoor lifestyle? Like, how can we go out? Why is it important? A bit of light on that, please. The role of sunlight, basically the role of sunlight for happiness. It's a very interesting relation.
Yeah, that's true. See, going out, it really, makes you feel lively. I'm just giving an example from my own personal life. Like, during the pandemic, like I was in the States, and there we weren't allowed, like everyone wasn't allowed to go anywhere, like I had this routine to get up, to work out, to go out, to jog in the nature, go hiking, see the Mother Earth, the greenery, the sunlight. It really boosts up our hormones. It makes us feel good. But during this time when we were all inside, like during that time, like we can talk to our families, our loved ones. Even if you can't go out and work out, we all have balconies. Like, just do yoga, take your mat outside, just go stand in the balcony, like water your plants, like, like there are other stuff too you can do while staying home.
Absolutely. Actually, I was asking this question because in my university in Australia, one of my friends, actually, when they got their vitamin D tested, it was merely 6 or 7, which is pretty low. And that was basically because of the lifestyle. Our university didn't allow us sunlight time, and we used to be all the time in the library. Even in the midnight, we used to be in libraries. And she basically also went through some mental health issues because of vitamin D deficiency, and also developed a kind of weak bones and stuff. So I wanted to emphasize upon this, especially for my friends, like my youth friends, how important it is to be in the sunlight. Anyway, moving,
I just want to add one thing, like you can, not all of us, but like we can compare during summers and during winters, for people living, outside India, like winters are gloomy for them.
Yeah.
Summers, like people tend to be more happy, the seasonal depression we call, it's mostly during the winter times,
Yeah.
So that's how, we can relate it straight. I would say like working out, not even working out, just go out,
Yeah.
take a walk, you will feel better.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. And yeah, touching on those points briefly, just, you mentioned very good points. Vitamin D, you said. So, talking about like scientific research, there's been like more than 100 studies implicating vitamin D deficiency to a range of mental health conditions, including like major depressive disorder, including anxiety disorders, including memory loss and dementias, including a lot of like whole slew of medical problems. And there are studies proving that when you replenish naturally or through supplementation, it does play a huge role in overall sense of wellness and how you feel about your medical health. So yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Also, like how Jasika mentioned about like how there's a seasonal pattern to things. So there are some, like when I was in the US, I did work in the Northeast. That's like relatively more like dark and gloomy. So we would have a lot of patients with seasonal affective disorder. So as the days get short, the nights get longer. So there's a desire, there's a variance in your circadian rhythm, the sleep cycle, and then that has been implicated in a lot of mood disorders. So we literally prescribe light therapy to a lot of our patients with 10,000 lumens, 20 minutes a day as soon as they wake up. For some like even higher for longer times, or sleeping right next to a window where you can maintain your basic sleep hygiene things. So yeah, I mean that I think it's a very important point to point out. Yeah.
Okay.
Just my 2 cents. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So two important messages from our panelists. One, Jasika mentioned it's okay to not feel okay, which is very important to understand. We often say that, we find that on social media especially, but it's important to understand what that means. If you're not feeling okay, it's absolutely fine to not feel okay, because we're not designed to feel the best and the happiest at all times. So number one. And number two, it's Sunday tomorrow, it's a weekend, so go get some sunlight, friends. It's really important.
Absolutely.
And that has been proven by more than 100 studies, as Dr. mentioned. So take care of that. Now, my next question would be to Ananya. Ananya, since you are a teenager, I think you can offer us a clear perspective on how today's teens see happiness, and how teens happiness is dependent on academic excellence, if it is at all. So could you please share your perspective on how your friends see happiness, or what is important, things like that?
Yeah, so first of all, I believe that happiness, the definition of happiness and the perspective differs with age. So if you ask a 60-year-old man, he would have happiness, maybe just he has his or her family happy. But for a teenager, seeing my peers especially, I feel it is more related and attached to personal goals, materialistic things, and some relationships. To further elaborate it, we often tend to businesswoman, or I'm not happy today, but I will be happy the day I have this car. So that we often attach our feeling of happiness with materialistic goals, expectations, and even relationships. So if my friend would come to my birthday party, I will be the happiest. But if she doesn't turn up, then my birthday would be ruined. So that is somewhere natural, understandable. But when it crosses some boundaries, I think that would lead a person a little unhappy. I believe that this is absolutely true. Teenagers are somewhere forced to attach their happiness to academic excellence.
Ananya, sorry.
That's because of the society, the parental pressure, external expectation.
Sorry to interrupt. I think there's some internet connectivity issue from your end. Can you please rectify that? Is it just me, doctor? Could you clearly hear her?
I could not. I was gonna mention that. Yes, it was breaking. It was interrupting in the
sorry,
middle. Yeah.
Yeah, Ananya, no problem. Please take your time, and we'll get back to you on the teenager's perspective. In the meantime, I'll talk to Dr. Manan. So as Ananya was mentioning about how we as youth and teenagers tend to attach happiness to certain external things. So for example, I have a story. So one of my closest friends, she actually thinks that once she becomes certain she becomes a Bollywood director, and her parents are famous, then she will be happy. Or there's another friend who thinks that he wants to earn a certain amount of money so that he's able to open a school for Paralympic players, and then he'll be happy. So what are your what are your insights, and what are your experience with your patients also? How do they see happiness? How do you see happiness? Something on those lines, please.
No, that's a that's a great question. That's a question, that is the question, right? I mean, a lot of us aspiring to be better versions of ourselves. A lot of us are motivated by a lot of external rewards, including professional satisfaction, professional accolades. There's a tendency to be the best version of yourself. So what I see in some of my patients is like, or including myself also, and in my friends, and a lot of, it's very common, I feel. So the happiness gets tied to the end goal, that if I get into this school or university, or if I make this amount of money, then I will be happy, right? It's a common narrative where if I have this car, or a stable household with X number of employees, and then I will be happy. But the process of this journey of getting there, that sometimes gets hazy and overbearing sometimes, and you tend to lose focus. And then I'm sure, and I was going to touch on that, like oftentimes when we look back, we realize, oh, we've reached this milestone, but what are we thinking? We're thinking about the next milestone. So the next path we're going to take often becomes like a similar path, where you just focus too much on the end goal, and you kind of not so much value your present, and kind of discount all the good things that are happening during this time, which kind of gives you a sense of that something, that you're on a right path, but that is not 100% me. That is a part of me. I will get there when I get there. Let me also kind of enjoy what this path has to bring, including savoring all the experiences, including like mindfulness, gratitude, taking care of yourself, spending good time with your family. So that's what I see a lot of in my professionally also. A lot of my patients complain, like if I have a patient who's been studying like every year for this exam, but he's not able to crack it. So his whole life existence has been revolving around that exam. If I don't clear it, that means I'm not worthy of love and belonging. I'm not worthy of, any, relationships. The whole self-esteem gets tied to that narrative, where, you don't feel confident, you don't feel, that you're good enough. And then that starts to affect your relationships, that starts to affect your sleep, your energy levels. You feel too exhausted all the time, but you're not even doing so much, but your mind is always going on trying to be better and be too focused on that end goal, and I'm sure Ananya can shed more light on that, also. um,
Right.
yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me properly now.
Yeah, we can.
Mhm.
Ananya.
Okay, so I think Dr. Manan covered it all, but just returning to what
Yeah.
we were discussing about the teenagers. So again, when he's talking about marks and attaching us happiness to a particular exam, that's a very common phenomena found among teenagers. So I believe that that is not only that is somewhere because of internal pressures and social competition, and I think a person either finds a way to escape it, because oftentimes we are not able to face it because we are not mentally prepared. We are often taught that what is the terminologies we are taught in the school or in a society or in our grooming, but we aren't taught how to face the challenges. So I think when it is like this part comes in grooming and parents start focusing and telling children that it's okay if you don't score, because I am blessed, my parents won't ever force me to get particular marks, or they don't set benchmarks. So when you are driven with your personal goals and ambitions and passion, I'll focus on the word passion, because when you're driven with the passion, you tend to face all the challenges. But when you are imposed that you have to pursue this career, or when you are forced to get a particular grade, then I think that's a problem. So if you can't change the situation of your parental pressure or your culture, then maybe just you can adopt some mechanisms to calm down yourself, because we can't always change external things. We can't change what our parents think or the society thinks. So yeah, I think it's both ways.
Absolutely great. So before we move to our second round of discussion, Ananya, I got to know that you had some activity for the audience. If you would like to bring in that, so we would love to first re-energize ourselves for the next half of the session.
Sure. So just to tell the audience, it is a very small activity, that's dance therapy, and I hope you all enjoy it. So all you have to do now is just get up at your places wherever you're sitting, and I hope it's possible for all of us. And I'll just play some music for a minute, and you just have to feel relaxed. If you are having some aches or some particular physical illness, if you can't do it, that's all right. But I would wish that everyone tries it. Just get up on your places. I'll do that as well. And it would be great if you switch on your videos, because that would be an encouragement and boost for others. So just give me a second. I'll be playing the music. And just let me know if you can hear that. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
So just shake your head, then your shoulders, arms, waist, top to bottom. Just relax yourself and loosen yourself. And I hope you'll enjoy it. Just close your eyes, even loosen your hair, anything. Just go for it. Just make your own steps. You don't have to be a choreographer or a dancer. Just loosen yourself as if no one's around you.
Ananya, could you please raise the volume?
Sure.
This is so much fun.
I think that's it. I don't know how many of you did that, but I personally enjoyed it. And if you did, please write
Yeah.
in the chat box and we'll get to know if you actually enjoyed it. So yeah, that's it. And of course, we can always try this when we are like after the webinar, whenever we are free, just, having dim lights and just loosening yourself with some music. Yeah, that's it.
Lovely. That was very exciting and energizing. Thank you, Ms. Ananya, for the activity. Now we would like to move on because we're running short of time. So we'll move to the next round of discussion. So I would like to know some science from three of you behind happiness. So I would like to start with you, doctor. What does scientific research say about happiness?
Yeah, I mean, if you just Google happiness, there's more than 1,000 articles get published every month. And if you talk about like every year, there's more than 1,000 books that get published on happiness every year. I mean, it's a very interesting fact, right? There is so much literature because a lot of us are chasing that. That's the sole purpose of your existence, right? I mean, most of us want to be happy all the time, right? So, I mean, so there are different types of researches being done. So when I was at Yale, the most popular class at Yale was this happiness course offered by the professor of psychology, Dr. Laurie Santos. So she, surveyed all the first year college students who had worked really hard, got into their top choices, made it to Yale, and she surveyed them, like, how are you feeling? And she assessed their mental health scores also, including like depression, sense of anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, how lonely do you feel? So what she found was very interesting. Like most of these, first year of freshmen in college, 1/3 of freshmen reported feeling depressed and hopeless. And then 60% reported feeling high anxiety, worried about not being able to meet their goals for the next milestone. Uh, More than 80% reported, feeling excessively overwhelmed because of for all the things they have to do all the time. There's never a break, and then about 20% even reported some, safety concerns, including the desire to just not wanting to go this path that they have chosen. So, and then there's like, so aside from survey studies, there's like more official like scientific studies. If we talk about like this researcher, Sonia Lubrowski, who has published several books on happiness. So what she's found is, so there are several factors which contribute to your happiness, including some hereditary factors, some genetic components, like genes do play a role in how your happiness, how you feel the happiness. So, but what she found was the role of uncontrollable things like genes and, like all the other things that we bring because of our existence. Those things account for only 50% of things, you know, and the rest 50% is all the factors that we can control, right? So that's what the scientific studies tell you. So out of the 50% of the things we can control, our day-to-day circumstances contribute to about 10% of that 50%, right? So like all the people in my life, the profession I am working in, all the material possessions I have, all of my, goals that ways, all of those things contribute about 10%. And the rest of the 40% of the things, so Sonia says that's an idea that 40% is in my hands, right? Those 40% of the things are not dependent on my genetics. They're not dependent on where I'm calling from, who I'm with, and what am I doing, right? So there's an idea that there's a more active component to achieving happiness. It's active work, um, so that contributes to the majority of what happiness can mean for different people. So I'm sure Ananya and Jasika can elaborate more on that. All the things that we are taught to do, and I can shed more light on that. Yeah, after.
Yeah, Jasika, if because you have studied a lot of health psychology, so there's this model called the biopsychosocial model, and even I, being a student of clinical social work, I've also read a bit about it. So if you could please share that model with the audience in some simple terms, so we also get a different perspective. So yeah.
Yeah. So like, like the definition is quite simple, the biopsychosocial model. So it consists of three components, the biological characteristics, the behavior, and the social. So these three are interdependent. If we consider the biological characteristics like, such as genes, physical health, immunity, stress response, your diet, your emotions, in behavior, your lifestyle, your health beliefs, social skills, self-esteem, and in the social component, the social conditions such as the cultural influences, family relationships, social support, peer group, family circumstances. I think we should, since these all are, dependent on each other, we should have a support network to support each other and have realistic optimism for life. We should have purpose, goals set so that, we feel we have something to do in life. Getting good night's sleep, nutritious food, exercise, they really help to regulate emotions and solve most of our problems. So in the end, I would say like mind, brain, and body have to be synchronized to be productive.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a quotation that we used to hear during our childhood: "A healthy mind lives in a healthy body." So I think that's what you've shed light on. How it's both interrelated. Your mind needs to be healthy for the body to be healthy, and vice versa. Awesome. Okay, Ananya. So I have a question for you. So since you practice mindfulness and you have attended a few meditation camps at such a young age, so I would like to know the science behind mindfulness and happiness from you. So mindfulness is a very, it's a buzzword. We hear it quite often, and we hear people talk about, we should practice mindfulness. But what exactly is that? And if you could also briefly share your experience with mindfulness and how that's connected with happiness.
Wow, that's my favorite thing, and I love to talk about it. So, first of all, to some who would like me to actually elaborate upon mindfulness, creative visualization is very simple.
Ananya, we're losing you again. Ananya,
Okay.
it would be better if you could maybe change your location, please. Okay. By the time we get Ananya back, we'll speak to you, Jasika and Doctor. So, if you have any final tips, because it's already 10 minutes to 7, so I think we could talk about the final tips before we end. Jasika, if you would have some final tips for our audience, some takeaways, what they can practice in their daily routine when they're not feeling too good, they're feeling a bit low. So yeah, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think happiness begins with what you think. If you think positively about yourself and others and the world around you, your words and actions will follow your thoughts. What's the one common goal everyone hopes to achieve during his or her lifetime? If you work at happiness, just maybe you will find something that satisfies you temporarily, right? Honestly, happiness is simply a byproduct of a loving, meaningful life. It's not just determined by what's happening around you, but rather what's happening inside you. Most people depend on others to gain happiness, but the truth is it always comes from within. Yeah.
I can't agree with you more on that, Jasika, because absolutely happiness does come from within. And I have had such experiences, especially living abroad, living away from your home when you're homesick. So and you don't know a lot of friends, especially in the first semester. And for my friends who've already been abroad or they're planning to go, this will be one experience that you'll have to go through. And I'm sure you both have also gone through the same thing. So you then actually turn inwards and you try to find happiness within you more than from the external surroundings. So yeah, that's a great perspective. Doctor, would you like to share any final takeaways? I have more questions, but still, if you have some message or
Yeah,
some.
absolutely. I think happiness, although it's a very subjective feeling, it's a, ephemeral, like a very transitional state of mind that gets, attached to a lot of things. And, like as Jessica pointed out, it comes from within. Like the ultimate happiness is that, you know, you are alive and you are talking about these things, or you are introspecting, like you're so like fortunate, right? I mean, you have this ability to kind of feel what happiness is and then what happiness isn't, right? When I talk about my patients, like some of the patients who are severely depressed or feeling excessively anxious, or the first thing to kind of go wrong is the sense of attention, this ability to kind of introspect and reflect and see what's wrong. Sometimes that gets impaired. So for the more high functioning people, like who are feeling totally at the best sense of themselves, so I think the ultimate happiness is that you are alive, and then adding to that segment, as you mentioned, like sense of purpose, sense of a meaning. If you look at the meaning research, right? So there's a meaning researcher, Emily Smith. She published a book a few years ago called Power of Meaning. um, so what she talks about is what is deeply embedded in a happy self or a happy life is also a sense of meaning. And she kind of outlines 4 foundational pillars to a sense of meaning. Um, what she talks about, the first foundational pillar is a sense of belonging, right? So what you mentioned, Sanjoli, is like when you were away, there was a sense that not many people that you're familiar with, they're all new, family is away, so that foundational pillar, like belonging, was kind of an important pillar that time, because you left home, you went somewhere else. And same thing applies to me, like I was in the US. So what Emily says is a lot of people get a sense of meaning when they feel loved or cared for who they are, not what I believe in, right? Like unconditional love, right? So when you go to your office, when your coworkers say hello to you and then they ask you how you are, that is very powerful, as opposed to you go to a setting where everybody kind of treats you like a furniture, like nobody says hi, nobody talks to each other. So that kind of affects your state of mind also, right? So that's the first pillar. The second pillar she talks about is as a virtue of your existence, your actions, how are they affecting other people's lives, right? And that could be through your job, that could be through, the other things you do outside of your job, right? Or just by a mere presence, right? So what's your purpose? So a lot of us kind of um, chase that. A lot of us envisage our lives as a life full of purpose. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to impact all these lives. And then that will give me a sense of meaning, and that'll keep me going, right? That'll what I'm waking up to. And knowing that, waking up kind of feel a sense of contentment that I'm going in the right direction, right? So that's the second pillar that she talks about. And I like that. And then the third pillar she talks about is a state of transcendence, right? Engaging in an activity that you feel so engrossed in, so passionate about. Like that's almost like a dissociated, like out of body experience for you. Because so if you talk to like, a lot of artists who spend hours and hours like mastering this craft, or like sculpting, or glass making, or Michelangelo's paintings, and or a monk who is preaching and meditating for hours and hours. He feels one with this god, one with this earth, right? So that's a very transcending experience. And then some people who have that kind of instills a sense of meaning, and which instills further a sense of happiness for a lot of people, right? So, and again, she talks about these pillars as not mutually exclusive. People can work on building these pillars, and you can have multiple pillars also. And this is like based on like thousands of research papers and talking to these like happy people. What do these happy people have in common? This is what comes out. And the fourth pillar she talks about is a sense of like storytelling, like all the events that have happened in your life, positive or negative. All these events can be seen as like dots. And the way you connect these dots and form a narrative really impacts and affects a sense of well-being and sense of meaning. For example, somebody, like a very popular rugby player who did very, very well, suddenly had a head injury and lost like, or developed paralysis. Now, right now he's on a wheelchair. So there are two ways of, putting on a narrative now. So the first way is like he can do a derogatory story where I was a very successful player. Now I'm paralyzed. I'm not good for anything, right? So when he tells that story to himself, he feels like more depressed and more anxious, right? So she suggests, so there's another way to look at it. So there's the actual story of a football player, so in which he says, before, when I was totally fit and fine, I was very arrogant and ignorant of people's needs. Ever since I've been on a wheelchair, I have been more observant and attending to people's needs, including my family. I do feel more connected, and I'm actually helping other people through my life lessons. So that's the story he's telling himself rather than a derogatory story or a regressive story. So it's a redemptive story he's telling himself now. So that's just one example. So the idea is all of us are going through life. All of us are encountering a lot of different life experiences. And what story we tell ourselves for that experience kind of really impact powerfully our sense of well-being, wellness, happiness, and a sense of meaning. So that's something I would wanted to add a little bit, and of course, keeping in mind the time limits also. Yeah, I'm just waiting for Ananya to come back and shed light on meditation. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, doctor, for that a comprehensive perspective on and science behind happiness and all those four pillars. Now, I would like to read out the comments quickly. We had some participants comment here. So one of them says happiness lies in the race that one runs and not in the trophy that one wins. And that's quite interesting. In fact, it's an interesting. So thing. Again, what Ananya and you three have also been trying to convey, that happiness is not a destination. It's about the journey you conquer. So yeah. And then another participant said she was feeling happy. I think it was in the context of that activity, the dance activity. And we had another comment saying happiness is so natural that it doesn't require any effort. Efforts are for unhappiness, and then coming out of that through depression therapy. Smile with the rag picker, no efforts, but tremendous happiness. Okay. Then another participant thanked Ananya for a good activity, and another one also thanked. So okay, so I'm glad that they enjoyed the activity. We have another comment coming in. So that's a positivity can be the way to stay happy, right? So that's a very talked about uh, thing, that you stay positive, you think positively, and that's the way to be happy. Absolutely. Although that term is very, very deep, and I think it's very subjective also what you think is positive, but I think that's a topic for another day. Another participant, Muskan Satija, says thank you for having us in the session. It actually thanks to you for attending the session.
Yeah, thanks to everybody.
It was indeed very enlightening. I loved every bit of it, and I need to leave. Sure. So no problem. Anyway, we are also winding it up. So it was a great session. One question before we leave. I have Ananya. Are you already here?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going through a test whether I lose my happiness because of the unstable Wi-Fi connection. So it's already a test whether what kind of emotions I show, but because of the low bandwidth, I'll have to switch off my video, keep my video off, but
Absolutely. No
I can
problem.
answer your questions again. Yeah.
Ananya, if you could just quickly complete your point on mindfulness, that'd be great. And then I have one winding up question. So yeah.
Sure, perfect. Thanks for that. And yeah, so I was talking about creative visualization, first of all. So that has a scientific back. So if you visualize something in the present, say, avoid visualizing a materialistic goal or a particular result. And if we just start visualizing a particular situation, then we start sending the frequencies, the waves in the universe, and we start attracting that particular situation. But here is a trick. The thing is that when we have an abstract or endless goal in our mind, that would be more beneficial. To exemplify, maybe I keep on thinking that I'm spreading happiness all over. So that is unlimited. But if I start thinking, I just want this Land Rover, and the day I am not able to have Land Rover, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'll feel unhappy. But I've an endless goal of spreading happiness, then I'll keep visualizing it forever. Coming to mindfulness, of course, that's a buzzword now. And so mindfulness is simply being aware in the present. So it is not at all complex. So if the participants are interested and they can just shell out 2 more minutes, I will love to suggest an activity that's grounding activity. May I go for it, Sanjoli?
Yes. Can we do that in the end, Ananya?
Sure, I'll do that. So I'll just tell about it. That's just a grounding activity, and people can just do a web search. But third is meditation. So I did Vipassana meditation, and I did Sudarshan Kriya yoga from Art of Living. So I did these 2 courses, and I don't think it's about which technique you follow, but it's about what you gather from it. And I have always been a seeker. I have not ardently followed or believed or had faith in a particular concept. But what I gather from it, the basic concept they focus on is being aware in the present again and again. And if you are trying to go in the future, in the past, just try to get yourself back there. have equanimity. Of course, that's very tough and easy to say, tough to practice. So equanimity is when you're not having aversions and cravings, you are somewhat balanced, and that comes only when you're able to accept things. So we are not able to change the external situations, but we can just accept things. So I think that's just a gist, but meditation is more complex. It involves some practices, but I'll suggest, especially my teenager friends here, to just try out, search on the Google and just try out any meditation technique. And I'm sure you'll uh, have a good experience. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ananya. In
Beautiful.
fact, I'd also like to quickly add on that even I have been practicing meditation, and I think I was about 18 when, like, as soon as I turned 18, I was encouraged by my parents, not really forced, but encouraged by my parents to attend a meditation camp. And I think it's more of a culture in our family. Like, all the children do attend once, like do attend a meditation camp once, so that they're exposed to something like that, and then it's a choice further. So I have practiced quite a few types of meditations. I've done Vipassana, I've done Nada Brahma, Kundalini, then there's one called Dynamic. So all of these things I've tried, and it's quite interesting. I mean, I recommend trying out new things, definitely. Mindfulness and things like that. It might sound boring, observing breath, things like that, because we are so addicted to phones and devices and being, doing something all the time. But it's hard for us to sit down and not do anything. But it's very important. I personally believe in spending some time in solitude, not doing anything. So I think that's very important. And another thing that is secret to my inner happiness is that I look forward to something. So as Dr. and Jasika also mentioned, it's important to have a purpose in life and look forward to something, because if you're directionless and purposeless, I think it's a little hard. So Simon Sinek actually talks about the golden circle and the why of things. So once you know why you're doing a certain thing, why you're studying this, why you're working in this job, why are you chasing something, so whatever, if you know the why, I think that gives you more clarity and peace of mind at the same time. So those are few things I also wanted to add upon. Now, my final question to my panelists is that just one question, if any one of you would like to answer. This is an interesting thing. The other day I was having a conversation with my friend, and we ended up the conversation saying, take care. And then, we actually contemplated that we so often say take care that we've actually lost the significance of it, or we've lost the need to know the meaning of it. We don't really know what taking care is. So if you could quickly, like one of you or all three of you could quickly share some insight on what is taking care, and actually she asked me, what is taking care? When you say take care, what do you want me to do? And I didn't have an answer. I was just dumbstruck. So
अपना ख्याल रखो.
हाँ, exactly, अपना ख्याल रखो. होता क्या है वो? So if you could please share if any ideas on that, if you have anything, because we have limited audience. I think they can also participate, maybe if anyone from the audience wants to speak, or the panelists want to add on, that'd be great.
So yeah, what I understand from taking care is maybe again physical and mental well-being. So just the way Jasika talked about health psychology and taking care of yourself in the way that you are spending time with yourself, prioritizing things, that what are your goals, and then focusing on that. So I think taking care is a very broad thing that can be just shortened down by saying that you are mentally and physically well. Yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Gauri. I would like to share something about take care. Take care is nothing but understanding, having self awareness about ourselves and knowing who am I. Who am I? We might say, I'm a peaceful soul, I'm a blissful soul, I'm a happy soul. But who is I? I is an ego state that lies within us. There are three types of ego states: parent, adult, and child. So, are you listening?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. And we're
There are
loving it.
three
Please go
types of
ahead.
ego states. So I is just a subject, and the objective is we want to be happy. So happiness lies within us, and it's an emotion. What It's a basic emotion which is electronic motions in the body. Emotions means they are the electronic motions in the body that makes a person decide to act according to the situation. So taking care is nothing but having self control, self awareness,
Yeah.
and regulating ourselves throughout the day to not get distracted, because not get distracted by the external forces is what
Yeah.
we call it as take care.
Yeah,
Beautiful,
that
Gauri.
was a lovely
That
point.
was, yeah, yeah. That's very deep,
Thank you.
but very, very relevant. And you broke it down very simply, simple words, this difficult concept.
Thank you.
Electrons, and
It
yeah,
was
that's
really
great.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I would just
was
like to add one thing. So I think we're just winding up. So what was my takeaway is like when I hear all these things like, meditation, sleep, physical health, talking to people, and then while also acknowledging your me time, solitude, and then so all these things, what's common in all of these things, right? So what I see is happiness seems like an active verb, right? I mean, you have to work on something to achieve that state. I mean, it's not a, you know, constant state of mind you can always be. I mean, there are things required off of you, sometimes more, sometimes less. Like meditation is an active habit, active exercise, right? Making sure you sleep well is an active effort to try to balance your work life, personal life, other things, right? Same thing with working out. So that's my takeaway. Like it's an active work, and then a lot of it we can control. As a Sonia, like the researcher told you, 40% is in our hands, 10% is circumstances, 50% is genetics. So knowing that kind of gives me a sense that there is still, no matter what is going on in my life, I can still do things that can affect my sense of happiness and well-being. So that was my last bit. Yeah.
great. Thank you, Gauri, for sharing your thoughts also. It was definitely very helpful. Um,
Welcome.
Thank you. So, any final thoughts from our panelists before we end the session?
Yeah,
Anything?
sure. If may I? Yeah.
Sure.
So I'll
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
narrate a very brief story, and I think all the participants will gather something out of it. So the story goes like, so two people were sailing in the ship, and the person who was the visitor would often ask the sailor, so do you know what is geology? He would say, no, I haven't studied, so I'm not educated. Like, okay, but you know what? If you don't know about geology, you have wasted a lot of your years of your life. You would be like, oh my God, what I did. Then, do you know about meteorology? No, you have wasted about half of your life. And again, he would get into thoughts. And what about oceanography? He's like, oh my God, I'm in the ocean and I'm sailing the ship and I don't know about oceanography. He said, you have wasted almost all of your life. And after a few minutes, when the tourist is just relaxing, the sailor comes rushing. Do you know swimology? He says, what's that? That's not no term. He says, do you know how to swim? He says, no. He says, actually, the ship is drowning and we have no other option. All of us are going to swim. And he says, you don't know swimming, so all the best. You remain with the terminologies because you have wasted all your life in terminologies and you have not practiced what you knew. So all of us get it that we have great knowledge. We keep on gathering from different webinars. But the thing is, we need to practice what we know. So knowing about terminology won't help. But of course, swimming in the ocean could have saved his life. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's it.
Wow, wow, that was an amazing message with a pinch of
Yeah.
humor. I loved it. Thank you so much, panelists, Dr. Manan Gupta, Miss Ananya Banerjee, and
One
Miss
second,
Jasika.
Sanjoli ma'am,
Sure,
are you
yeah,
there?
yeah,
Uh,
Yashmi, please.
yeah, this side Yashmin, and I have a question which I'm dealing recently.
Sure.
It was a very thought-provoking thing. Recently, I saw two children. They were, I guess, 3 or 4 in age. They were playing with their toys, gathered in one place, and both of them were jeopardizing each other. So they were like, my toys are better, and the other one was like, mine are better. So watching them that way was quite kind of thought provoking, that why nowadays children, teens, a lot of, like, a majority of people, they jeopardize other one and take out, precipitate out happiness of their own. So what is the mental development of theirs? What I can say is the main factor that helps a child, for a child to grow up? So what's the main factor?
May I go for it?
Dr. Manan or Ananya, Jasika, any one of you, please.
So yeah, I'll just talk about it briefly. Then of course you both can elaborate. So I think for grooming of any child and what actions you are able to see and then you're able to conclude from the actions is because of two factors, I believe: nature and nurture. So one thing is about the grooming, that what kind of an environment a person is given, be it a teenager and adult. And then is some things of course come genetically and hereditary. Some things are hereditary. So and then as we are adults we have a choice to make. So sometimes we can not we are not really towards what is hereditary, but we can make choices of what we are. So I think for a child, particularly if you're talking about 3 or 4 years, I think that's because of the environment a person is given. And if there are modifications in grooming, I think a child will tend to act differently. I don't know if Dr. Manan and Jasika would agree.
I was
No,
about to say
absolutely,
the same
100%.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nature
Okay.
and nurture, like, I wouldn't say 50%, but yeah, there's a balance between the two.
Mhm.
The family genes, how they play out, and the child, how he was comparing. Maybe he has seen from the environment, from his or her parents, siblings, other friends. They tend to compare, like, it's really nature and nurture. And like it depends on especially the parents and your friend circle, how you tend
Role model.
to
Yeah.
role model. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
interestingly, if I could just add one thing quickly, I read somewhere that now your nurture includes media as well. So apart
Yeah.
from your parents and family, extended family, there is impact of media as well, because this is the generation that is a lot dependent on technology. So that is also a thing to be taken care of, that what a person is gathering from media. Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, you guys hit the nail on that one too. I mean, exactly. I mean, a lot of us, I mean, especially children, like, there's so many components going in their reference frames which are informing a behavior, including, like, caregivers, including the environment they're in, including the schools, including what they're consuming in the digital revolution. And also, when a child does a behavior, how does that behavior gets reinforced, right? I mean, some parents would really like their children to be much, much better in every single way compared to their colleagues. And then certain parents do reinforce, yes, you should be the number one, you should be like. And the cost could be anything. Cost could be bullying, cost could be, I mean, sometimes these behaviors are unintentional, but sometimes they're perceived it as that I was bullied, or I was, disparaged on, or, so I do feel, especially like early on, when you see that certain behaviors touch you deeply, positively or negatively, I do feel there's things you can do to kind of reinforce that behavior positively or negatively. And there's always reasons why a behavior is happening. I think spending a moment and reflecting on that, and then seeing, I mean, what we can do about it. I mean, I do teach that to a lot of my children, parents also. So yeah, I feel on the surface, this might seem it's very human to do that, but I do feel there are nurturing factors that go along with it, which we can break the cycle so that in the future, we can role model a better strategy that we would wish to see in the child, you know? Yeah.
Certainly. Thank you, Yashmin, for the question. And thanks to our panelists for very well talking about and answering the question. So I think we got to end now because it's already 20 minutes past 7. And
I think we can end the session saying take care to be happy within yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would like to end on the final note that, the other day I was thinking of what I want to be in life, because this is one question that we are asked from our childhood. What do you want to be in your life? And you have to have an answer, because if you don't, you get a lecture from elders saying that you're not, you
Focus
haven't
enough.
planned,
You're like,
and
right.
you don't have a direction.
You're lazy.
So, and because I'm making career choices, so I was actually contemplating the other day of what I've wanted to become, because of course choices keep changing when you're exposed to new things. So now I want to be ABC. Earlier I wanted to be a security analyst. Now I'm studying social work. And before that, I wanted to be a judge. So I wanted to join the Indian judiciary since childhood. But actually, when I delved deeper into what I wanted to be, I found out that I've always thought of this one term, that I want to be a happiness ambassador. And it's very interesting that I forgot about this in the middle of my life, being busy with so many degrees and opportunities and I don't know, responsibilities kind of stuff. So I wanted to bring that up again, and I wanted that to resurface. And that's why we thought of doing this webinar. And I want to end here that let us all be happiness ambassadors first, and then we can think about other career goals and roles we want to take up in life. Because once we're happy, I think things will be better. So yeah, I'm working on it, and I hope I don't forget that for the next few years. So my teacher used to ask me what do you want to be in life, and I always had this answer within me: I want to be happy. That's it. So let's just have those simple goals instead of very complicated ones. So thank you so much for joining. Thanks to each one of you for sticking by for so long, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a happy happiness day. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. We enjoyed the journey. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.